Hi and welcome to this Blender video tutorial about physics I'll be making. My name is Carlos, and today what we're going to be learning is the physics on making a Newton's ball, I think it's called. And here, let me show you exactly what we're going to be doing. Let me hit P to start Blender's game engine, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing right now in Blender. Alright, let me escape out of that, and let me go to I don't want to call this a new file, blend file, because I already have pre-modeled a frame where my balls, or sorry, where my spheres are going to be hanging on to. Let me go ahead and tap 1 to go into front view. Let me put my mouse cursor, or my 3D cursor, somewhere around right there. And let me go ahead and hit Shift A. I'm going to add a mesh, and I'm going to add a UV sphere. That's a little bit too small for my taste, so let me bring it up a little bit up like that. Okay, let me go right ahead and go to the left hand side over here and hit smooth. If this panel is not there, it's probably because it's tucked in, like so. The way you tuck it in and out is by hitting T on your keyboard. Okay, now what you want to do next is I'm going to press 7 on my keyboard to go to top view, because I want this sphere to be right about the middle. Okay, because it's going to be right there, right in the middle. Press 7 to go back into top view. And guys, if you hear a lot of noises on the background, I'm really sorry. I live right on the edge of where a lot of traffic is passing by, so really sorry about that. Anyway, going back to the fun part, let me grab this sphere by hitting G on my keyboard. Let me constrain on the y-axis by hitting Y, and I'm gonna move my sphere somewhere around right there, somewhere about the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect. So my sphere is right there. Now there's one problem. My sphere right now, in the 3D world, in the real world that is, it's not right. I mean, what's holding that ball right there, or that sphere? I mean, something has to be holding this sphere, because the laws of gravity will surely bring it down if nothing is holding it. So let's go ahead and model that real quick, and that's very easy. Let me hit 1 to go into front view. Let me scale in a little bit. I'll put my mouse, or if you hear me call the 3D cursor the mouse cursor, I do that a lot. I'm really sorry, guys. Okay, please forgive me. I do apologize for that. Let me click over here to put my 3D cursor somewhere around there. Hit Shift A, add a mesh cylinder, and that's obviously too big, too large to be a string or a metal that will hold my sphere. So let me hit S to scale this down, way down, like that, like so. And I am going to hit G for graph, and I'll put it somewhere around there. I'm going to hit 3 to go to side view, and I'm going to grab G for graph, and hit Y to constrain on the y-axis and put it somewhere around right there. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Pressing down Shift and pressing down the mouse scroll button down and dragging pans to view, just doing the opposite, or not the opposite, but just without pressing Shift and pressing down the mouse scroll wheel down, you move in 3D space. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Alright, let me go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Let me hit R to rotate, and right now it's rotating on the 3D cursor, because I told Blender to do that. And the way you can change that is by hitting comma on your keyboard, and now it rotates on its own pivot point, or origin point, which is that little round dot right there. Let me zoom in a little bit. Hit tab to go into edit mode. Tap A to go out of, or actually, sorry, tap A to deselect my vertices, and I'm gonna hit B for boy. Click and drag. This is border box selection. Let go, and it selects all my vertices. If it didn't select all your vertices, let me hit 3 to go back to side view. Let me hit A to deselect all my vertices. If it didn't select all of your vertices like it did, it's probably because this bad boy right here is not tick. Let me go ahead and untick it to, or actually let me go ahead and tick it to show you what it does. So I'm gonna hit B to border box select, click and drag, and it only grabs the front vertices. Okay, this, if you tap this little button right here, let me hit A to deselect everything, 3 to go into side view, B for border box select, and click and drag. Now all my vertices get selected. Now there is something that I need to do before I do anything, so let me go ahead and grab everything. I could just hit A, but you know, let me go ahead and hit R to rotate my cylinder, which it's going to become a string that holds this sphere, and I'm going to grab it somewhere around there. That's right there was good. Never mind. Let me go ahead and hit A to deselect all my vertices. Let me press and hold R, click and drag. This is a lasso selection, and then I'm going to hit, you know what, let me go ahead and I do need to rotate this a little bit more. Grab it and put it somewhere around there. Okay, yeah. A to deselect, and I'm just gonna do a lasso grab like that. G for grab, and I'm gonna put my vertices somewhere around there. This could be right here. Let me do it. Let me rotate this. No, I won't rotate it. Sorry, guys. Whenever I tend to do a modeling, when you model something, it tends to be very fun, and it's very fun to start tweaking stuff here and there. But this is not a modeling tutorial, so let me go ahead and limit myself to show you how to do the physics. But let me finish the strings first. Okay, let me go ahead and deselect all my vertices by hitting A. Let me tap out into object mode, or let me tap out of edit mode, and I'm gonna hit, well, that's a little bit too thick, I think. So let me scale this down on the whoops, let's see, yeah, like that, I think. If you are an expert at modeling, I know you're looking at me right now and thinking, what is he doing? I'm not an expert, so I just like to share my knowledge, what I know, little that I know somebody out there doesn't know it, and I'm very happy to share it. I'm open to comments, to suggestions, and whatnot. This is how you learn. Okay, so let me go into, tap into edit mode. Let me go ahead and select these vertices and put them up here now, and that should look a little bit better. Okay, I think. Anyway, let's go ahead and, my mouse is acting a little bit weird. 3 to go into side view. Well, my cylinder is selected. Let me hit smooth, shift D to duplicate it, and I'm gonna click right click to get out of the selection, R to rotate. I'm gonna rotate around there, G for grab, right there, rotate it, grab. Now this doesn't have to be perfect, guys. This is not a contest, a modeling contest. This is a tutorial about the physics, and I will limit myself to just doing that. Okay, so let me go ahead and I don't took too long, and I think that looks okay anyway. So let me go ahead and hit smooth. Another thing I want to do is make this object, and this object into one object. That way, whenever I grab or select one of the objects, everything will be selected. And the way I could do that is deselect everything, hold shift, right click, and right click. And I need to join them, so I do Control J, and that joins them together. Hit A to delete, not to delete, sorry, to deselect everything. Right click to select, and notice that it's one whole object now. Okay, let me go back into hit 1 to go into front view, and let's get down to the fun part, which is physics. Okay, now what we have to do here before we tell Blender that the physics need to be from static. And you know what, sorry, originally this is not what Blender gives you. Originally Blender, if you go to up here, Blender gives you Blender render. Okay, so if you have your sphere selected and you go to the far right hand side where your physics button is, you'll find these options. Okay, and they are physics, but Blender has most of its physics in the game engine. So what I'm doing right now is I am selecting Blender render, and I'm going to select Blender game, and notice right away my options change. Okay, now before I go ahead and tell Blender that the physics type needs to be from static to rigid body, I need to first of all go ahead and apply the scale and the rotation, if any. I don't remember rotating anything around just yet, but I need to tell Blender that the rotation and the scaled needs to be applied. So I'm gonna hit, while my sphere is selected, I'm gonna hit Control A, and I'm going to apply the rotation and the scale. Next, what I'm gonna do here, while my sphere is selected, I'm gonna go to my physics. I'm gonna change this physics type from static to rigid body. And before I forget, let me go ahead and use or select use material force field, because we're going to be adding the physics options, or the physics, what's going to make the physics work to a material. You see that in a minute. So I'm going to click use material force field, and I'm going to say no sleeping. And what no sleeping does is it doesn't, this ball right here, it's going to be rotated up here, and it's going to come with force, hit the rest of the balls, and that energy is going to transfer along those other balls, and the last ball is going to grab that energy. It's going to bounce up here, and it's going to come back and forward, back and forward. Now if I had no sleeping ticked out, the animation, so to speak, will stop somewhere around the ball or the spheres going back and forward, and it's not going to look smooth, and it's not going to look natural. So make sure no sleeping is selected, and I'll try to remember at the end and show you a demonstration of what I was talking about right now. Okay, now after this, I may or may not need to go ahead and tick lock rotation on the x-axis and y-axis, but for now I'm gonna leave it just like that. You know what, let's go ahead and lock it right now before we get into any troubles. Okay, now if I hit P as in Peter to bring up Blender's game engine, and I'm really sorry guys, I know you hear background noises right now. That was a car passing by. I live right on the edge where there's a lot of traffic, so I'm really sorry for that guys. Let me hit P. Also, you're gonna hear dogs and whatnot, and I know it's not very professional, and I really do apologize for that. There is nothing I can do about that. Alright, let me hit P to start Blender's game engine, and notice that my ball falls, and that's not what I want. I mean, that's beautiful, because we now know that that ball has gravity, or Blender's world now has gravity, so it's bringing that ball down. So let me go ahead and I need to go ahead and pivot, okay? Because when this ball is grabbed, if you grab this ball or this sphere and you put it up here and then you let it go, notice that it actually pivots right around there. Okay, so let me go ahead and add a constraint. While my sphere is selected, I'm gonna go up here to that where that little chain icon is. I'm gonna click it, left click it, add a constraint, rigid body. On the rigid body, I'm gonna tell it to display the pivot so that I can see the pivot points, and I need to bring it up to right around there. So what I'm gonna do is slide the z-axis and bring it just right around there. Alright, now if I hit P, beautiful, it doesn't move, escape out of that. But if I rotate it, it's not rotating exactly where I wanted it to rotate. Okay, and one thing I could do to make my ball or my sphere rotate right around there, I can tell Blender to rotate my object and use my 3D cursor as a pivot point. So while my 3D cursor, it's right on the spot that I want my pivot point to be, I'm going to press period on my keyboard, R to rotate, and look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Let me go ahead and put it up there. Hit P, and you can already see what's going to start to happen. Now, let me escape out of that. Control Z to undo my rotation. Now, let me go ahead and add, while my sphere is selected, let me go ahead and add a material. Is that the material? Yes, material. Don't get the materials and the world confused. They look the same. If you're not sure, make sure you first, before you click it, hover your mouse over for a fraction of a second or so, and it'll tell you what it is. So this one here's the material. We're okay. Let me go ahead and hit new. And the physics is going to be applied to the material. So I'm going to go straight down to the material where it says physics. If you don't see physics right now on materials, it's because you're not in Blender Game. You're in Blender Render. Okay, so let's go back to Blender Game. And the friction has to be bump up to 10. So I'm going to type in 10. The force, which is the force in which this ball is going to hit, it's going to be all the way to 1. The elasticity, it's going to be, don't put it all the way to 1. Put it somewhere around 93, 94, give or take. This is the force. And indeed, it makes the ball hit with force, but the elasticity, it's the one that actually makes it, once it bounces from this, or the energy is transferred from the rest of the spheres to this one, it goes up and then it starts to dissipate. Okay, you'll see what I mean in just a minute. Now, is there anything else that we need to do to this right now? No, there isn't. So let me go ahead and, while this sphere is selected, let me do Shift D to duplicate, G for grab, X to constrain the X-axis, and I'm sorry if that dog is driving you nuts like it's driving me. So I'm going to put it somewhere around there. Shift D to grab both of them, or select both of them. And Shift D to duplicate. Wait, I said that wrong. Sorry. It's you press and hold Shift, right click, while still pressing Shift, right click, and it selects both of them. Okay, that sounds better. Let me go ahead and do Shift D to duplicate, G to grab, X to constrain in the X-axis, and I'm gonna move it right about there. Looks like I need another sphere there, so I'm gonna hit A to deselect everything, and right click the last sphere, Shift D, G for grab, X to constrain the X-axis, and I'm gonna put it right around there. I'm gonna select, right click, select the well, give or take the last or the first one, however you want to see it, sphere, R to rotate it, and I think I have a duplicate there, so let me hit X, delete, and I think this one here is also, yep, X, delete. We have any more duplicates? Nope. Don't pay attention to where it's pivoting right now. I'm just making sure that I don't have any duplicates. Alright, let me go ahead and, while this sphere is selected, let me do R. I want to bring it right around there, hit P, see what happens. Beautiful. That looks beautiful. Now, notice how they're not actually behaving like they should be behaving. Let me escape out of that. On the very first one that I did to myself, that's because I tweaked it a lot. So if I hit P, it behaves a lot better. And that's because you have to go ahead and tweak these options right here. Sorry about that. Let me go ahead and tweak these options right here. The elasticity, maybe around 94. Play around also with the distance in which you put those spheres. Don't put them too far apart. Looks to me like they're too far apart. Maybe this one. X. Yeah, X. And maybe this one. If not, then put them a little bit separate. and you just have to play around with that for a little bit, see what results you get. Let me give you a different perspective this time. Hit P, and that it's looking good now, except I know what's going on here. Let me escape out of that. Let me hit 1 to go into front view. I may need to do this to all of my spheres. Shame on me for that. I should have done this at the very beginning. So let me select my first sphere. We'll go to the physics and come to the radius. The radius is what gives my sphere mass. Actually, I said that wrong. The radius is the mass. What? Okay, the radius, it's the mass, or the how big around my mass is. Okay, right now if I do control P, notice that it hits the ball before even the ball hits the ball. If that makes any sense. Okay, so here, the radius, this is the mass. Okay, maybe I didn't explain myself right. I'm really sorry about that. This is the radius, or how big my solid object is going to hit the other, if that makes any sense. I'm really sorry, guys, but here I'll show you. I can show you better that I can explain this. You know, that would probably hopefully be a little bit obvious. So look at this radius right here, or this dotted line. That's what's solid. Okay, so if we hit P, you can right away start seeing that. Okay, so let me escape out of that. Let me go ahead, and the radius, I want it because I want my sphere to be the one that's solid. I want the radius to be right about the surface of my sphere, and I can hold shift to fine tune that. And I'm really sorry if I confused you. Hopefully by hitting P right now and showing you what I mean, you'll be able to understand. I'm really sorry, guys. Alright, so go ahead and play around with that, and let me escape out of that, and you may have to do it to Z to go into wireframe mode. And yeah, you see how the radius, it's right. I don't know if the recording will pick it up, but this is the radius. So if I hit P right now, I don't know if you notice, but my spheres seem to be like if you see the last one and the second to the last one, it seems like they're almost transparent. They're going in with each other. Okay, so that's because my radius, or the mass, or the hardness of the sphere is actually not on the surface, and I can fine-tune that by having my sphere selected, and under the physics, make sure that the attributes under radius, it's right there. Okay, that way it'll look. And I'm sorry that I'm gonna have to do this to every single one of them. If I would have done it just to the first one and then copy pasted it, I wouldn't have to go through this trouble. So it's not really too much trouble, and I am just being a little bit sloppy right here. You know, the purpose of this tutorial was to show you how to make those spheres hit and transfer its energy and come back and forward, kind of like a Newton's ball. I think it's called Newton's ball. I know it's called Newton's something. I have to Google that one up. So let me hit, and all I'm doing is I'm hitting Z to get into wireframe view, or Z again to toggle back and forward from wireframe to solid view. And that's probably gonna look a lot better. Let me try that. Much better. You see, it wasn't my intention to confuse you guys. It sounded there for a little bit that I got confused myself, and that wasn't the case. Trust me, I know exactly how that worked, how this worked, and hopefully I didn't confuse you. And by showing you rather than trying to sit there and explain, that you were able to see what I was talking about. Now, let me do something about the notes. Let me tap out of wireframe mode so that we can actually see the animation in its full glory. There you go. Now, of course, you can start adding materials, making this look more realistic by making it look like metal or a chrome, or whatever. So let me go ahead and escape out of that, and before I go anywhere, let me go ahead and show you how to record this animation if you wanted to record the animation, because right now, remember, we're in Blender Game, but if you wanted to record the animation still in Blender Game, and this is very easy, all you have to do is go to Game, click Record Animation, make sure that your header on the timeline, it's right on the first keyframe, okay. Now all you have to do is go to the little camera right there and start the game. It'll this time you have to let it go through the whole thing, okay, up until you want. Make sure you finish the animation before you hit escape. It seems to me like it's done right now, so I'm gonna hit escape. Notice there's nothing on my timeline yet, but if I go from Blender Game to Blender Render, now I have all these keyframes. Okay, now if I press play, and I'm no longer in the game engine anymore, I'm in Blender Render. If I press play, nothing happens because I don't have the keyframes are there, but the timeline right here, it's starting at one keyframe and it's ending at one keyframe. So let me see how many keyframes does this actually go. That's a lot of keyframes, about 1460. So I'm gonna put right there and say 1460. Enter. Let me press play, and now we get something, or a beautiful animation of what we were actually trying to accomplish. Okay, then from here, from Blender Render, let me stop the animation. Make sure that you are on the very first key. If you wanted to like record this animation, make sure you're on the first keyframe, and then under this little camera icon right there, make sure you click that, and the output folder, this is where your video is going to be saved. You can just put this one test. I'm just gonna call it test 1, and I know I'm being sloppy there, I'm really sorry. I'm gonna click accept. So now that's the directory. My desktop will be the directory of where my video file is going to be saved. And then if you scroll down just a tiny bit more, over here on this little tab, if you click it, you get many other options, and you can the movie, you can export the movie as a HD, RAW, IVI, AVI JPEG, or AVI codec. Do the codec, and then if you start rendering the animation, it'll save that animation as a video. Alright, so thank you very much for watching, guys, and again, I am open to suggestions. I am open to any tips that you guys can give me. I will not get mad. I am here to learn. I'm a beginner, as you could see, so the reason of my blog is just for that, for having fun with Blender, and that's just the name of my blog. Okay, funwithblender.blogspot.com. Please visit it. Become a member. Also visit my YouTube channel. It's CAMA123. That's C as in Charlie. Okay, so you can just go to youtube.com/CAM123, enter, and you'll be able to see my tutorials. Please also visit the blog. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Till next time.